Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce panel on diversity and equity. We're so grateful to have you with us here today, and we have a wonderful panel who are going to be able to share with us all about equity and diversity in the cannabis industry. We're also going to be following up with a wonderful speed networking event, and we hope that you'll all be able to connect with people to better the outreach of your business here in the cannabis industry. So right now, I'd like to say thank you so much to our sponsors, as well as Then High for assisting with our program today. And we would probably like to introduce to you our panelists for today. And that is Jane Castro, and she's with Manifest 7, as well as Darius Kemp and Ralph Schukel. So welcome so much, panelists, for being with us here today. And I'd like to start off by, if you could introduce yourself and share a little bit about your background within the industry. Jane, would you like to say something first?
Sure. Sorry, Keiko, your audio's got a little lag on my side, so I apologize because I wasn't sure if it was going to be to me.
Okay, I apologize.
You're loud and clear. It might be me. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Castro, Senior Director of Distribution Operations for Manifest 7. I've been in the cannabis space for about 3 years, joining in through a smaller company and then moving forward with Manifest 7 in 2019. Prior to that, I was actually a small business lender, lending to small businesses all across the country, anywhere from gas stations to boutique hotels, avocado groves, doing USDA loans, you name it, I did it. I did a lot of government lending for small businesses that kind of needed that extra jump in capital to get started. So obviously, when I got recruited into the cannabis industry, that was something that was very near and dear to me, and getting some less populations with less resources, the resources that they needed to get started, including the right personnel. So I'm very excited to be here, very excited to be a part of the cannabis community, and really excited to be speaking on this panel with the rest of you.
Thank you so much, Jane. And Darius, please share with us about who you are and what your space is in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, thank you so much, Keiko, for having me, and just everyone excited to be on the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce panel about diversity and equity and social equity in the industry. So I actually got involved through my work in labor union organizing. I actually kind of came through it from that lens of advocacy and activism, primarily because of the kind of, to what Jane was speaking about, the kind of need for people with diverse communities. Because when we talk about Black Americans in the cannabis space, we are actually talking about the over-incarceration rates and the over imprisonment rates that happen throughout the system. So when we look at what cannabis is as an industry, it was built upon the backs of Black and brown people who are imprisoned. And now we are literally flipping the switch and saying, oh, it's okay to make millions, if not billions of dollars off of this plant, right? So I've come at it from that kind of aspect and viewpoint. And so as the head of equity at Ease, I've been there for about 2.5 years now. I actually started off as a community manager, kind of engaging with various aspects of our external community with Ease. And now I oversee our entire social equity program and our external and internal kind of community partnerships to try to build a more equitable and diverse cannabis industry through whatever resources we have at Ease.
Very impressive that Ease has developed that for your company there. So thank you so much, Darius. And Ralph, could you go ahead and share with us a little about yourself and your space within the industry?
Sure, and I want to thank the Cannabis Chamber. They're doing an amazing job of of advocating for the industry throughout the United States and California specifically right now, but I know that it's a growing organization and we're here to support it in every way possible. I wear a few different hats. I'm involved in cross-border business, very involved through the Latin American Cannabis Alliance in Mexico, which I co-founded with two of my good partners and good friends in Mexico. We developed an advocacy group similar to the Chamber of Commerce in Mexico to basically advocate for legalization and help that move forward in Mexico on all fronts, from everything from recreational to industrial hemp. We've had a lot of delays, but we've been very persistent in getting things done over there and making some very large strides in getting to federal legalization. In the U.S., I've been involved in a few different ventures. One of them is a recreational venture called Gallo de Oro Brands, and the other one is mostly focused on industrial hemp and Farm Bill compliant hemp applications. That's Interbloom Holdings, and so basically, I wear a few different hats, mostly in Mexico, but in California as well. And I've been in the industry for over 8 years myself in California. And I think what's most relevant about my background in this conversation is the fact that I'm on both sides of an international border, and I'm involved in experiencing some of the dynamics that are playing out that have to do with diversity and this topic specifically on both sides of the border. So I'm seeing things develop that have a lot to do with this subject in general, and I want to share that and just kind of talk about my experience and see if it helps anybody that's trying to break into this industry or that's trying to evolve in the industry.
Well, welcome all of you. It's so grateful that you're here with us today, because I think your experience and your insight is something very important to share at this time as we bring forward much more information on creating space for diversity as well as equity. So I do have a co-host with us, who's Jay Brower. He's going to be coming on with us in just a few minutes, but I'm going to have a couple of questions I want to bring forth for you to all to ponder, and then we can just take turns answering them. In the industry right now, facing challenges in creating fair and equal opportunities based on race, gender, or both. What do you think your thoughts are about that in this cannabis industry?
If I can piggyback a little bit on what Darius even kind of opened up in saying,
sure.
For me, a lot of this has to do with the cycle of poverty. I was heavily involved with the San Diego Food Bank for a really long time. I worked in nonprofit for a number of years, and while I was in banking, I did a lot of volunteer work, particularly with the food bank. And when you get to know a lot of the folks that stand in that food line waiting for portions from a pantry or what have you, you hear a lot of stories about where that struggle began. And when you think about lots of kids going to school, sometimes homeless children going to school and not having enough to eat, they can't concentrate, they can't learn, they grow into adults who lack a bit of education and turn to different means to make an income. Each of those households may have multiple generations that may have been experiencing poverty throughout their whole lives. And then say, for example, one of those individuals ends up being incarcerated, maybe even wrongly incarcerated. That leaves their children to then pick up the reins, maybe not finish school. They're now struggling. And then it just starts this cycle of being unable to get above water and just really reacting and trying to make a place for it. When I think about the cannabis industry being essentially really family owned and operated for decades, we really owe it to the cannabis industry to reinvest in those people, to reinvest in individuals that have been unfairly incarcerated. In particular now, it's legal in California. There's zero reason for anyone to be incarcerated for possession or selling small amounts of marijuana at this point. It's just, to me, unfair and unreasonable, and is holding us back from really growing and even stimulating the state economy. So for me, a lot of this all ties back to key components in the cycle of poverty.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the economics is very important, and it is unfortunate that that has become a roadblock for so many minorities who want to be part of the cannabis industry. Darius, I'm sure you have something you can add to that.
Yeah, I was just thinking, at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is systemic issues within our society. I think when we look across everything that is happening in the country today, I think we just, we are seeing, that we are in an inflection point within our country. And that inflection point means that we really need to take a step back and look at every system, institution within our society and say, is it working or is it not working? Criminal justice, of course, is one, especially as we move into the trial as we continue moving into the trial of Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd. And as we look at the variety of other issues proliferating our society, how many people in polls say Congress is broken? That nothing seems to move, nothing seems to change, right? And us here in the cannabis space, we're also like, we have 68% approval from recent national polls, showing, which is the highest it's been since Gallup has been tracking Americans' approval or disapproval of cannabis. In every category and subgroup approves of the use of cannabis, and yet for some reason we are unable to move past stigma, a prejudice. What is the rationale here, especially when we look at more than half of the states that have adult recreational and medical, and with it about 1/3 or so of our states being adult use, right? So what we're looking at in the cannabis space is, and the question we should always be asking ourselves is, and excuse me here, I come from a bit of a background. I have degrees in international politics and relations here, and one thing I learned in graduate school was always about like theory and deconstructing and reconstructing. And so like we have to figure out how we can deconstruct these systems that we currently live in. How can we construct the actual system that we want to operate in? And that's across the board. So we need to hold ourselves to account as a people, as a nation, as a state, but we also need to hold every level of our institutions account, including the cannabis industry. So that's why, Ease has spent a large amount of our time focusing in on our programs like Momentum that gives grants to social equity and POC and women-led companies. That is why we have really gone full force into this conversation about social equity, about diversity in cannabis. Because at the end of the day, if we're not having these conversations and if everyone isn't chipping in to move that conversation forward, then what actually are we doing?
Thank you so much, Darius. And Ralph, I think both with you and Darius, your background in developing those types of nonprofit organizations that are bringing people together are really important. So, what do you feel? Do you feel that are we looking at being able to support individually more race or gender, or is it both?
Well, there's some very deep-rooted issues around cannabis that have to do with inequality and all of these topics that we're going to be touching on throughout this conversation. But the bottom line is we're transitioning into a legal industry from an industry that has been incorrectly categorized and prohibited and incorrectly categorized as something bad. And so you have a lot of people that participated in this industry prior to legalization in the states, in certain states, that have been labeled, and mostly because yes, poverty has created opportunities in these black markets for people that they don't have otherwise in other markets. And so yes, a lot of people have been targeted that are black, brown, and from any minority category in the U.S. and it's been a problem for us for many years. I'm Latino. I grew up in a border town, San Isidro, here in San Diego. I experienced it myself as a teenager. I was lured in by the prospect of being able to make money with cannabis, which was something that I enjoyed myself and I thought was very beneficial to many people. However, it was incorrectly prohibited, and so I saw nothing wrong with being in this business, but I was running a great risk as a young kid trying to make money with this. But the point is, the larger problem that we have is at a federal level, not having the support of our leaders, of the people that we elect to offices such as governors and senators and congressmen. They're not listening to what we want at that level, and they're not causing the change that we need to happen for an industry to thrive. And so we're limited to these state policies and sometimes unfair state legislations that don't allow an industry to thrive on a national level. Me personally, I went to Mexico to look for that because Mexico announced that they were going after federal legalization, and I found an opportunity there that is going to let us thrive. It's going to allow for an industry to develop on a national level. It's going to allow it to compete globally. Here in the U.S., a problem that's going to trickle down to poverty and to race and going to affect all of those aspects of society is that we don't have the support of our legislators at the federal level to create, legalization in Washington. And so, we need to hold them accountable as voters and as constituents. And I mean, we need to do more. And, the Cannabis Chamber is doing a great job. We've got organizations that do, do the good work of getting the right message out there. But at the end of the day, our legislators are not, so they're not making our voice be heard in a lot of places. And I mean, by now, we should have a regulation that allows for this industry to thrive from the largest economy in the world. I mean, Mexico right next door is going to legalize federally and beat us to the punch from a U.S. standpoint. And I mean, it's a little ridiculous, that we're so far behind, to be honest with you. That's my take on it. Is it's a trickle down. We don't have the support from the federal government, and that at the very basic level sends the wrong message across every category of society that wants to get into the industry. And so, that's kind of like, that's my perspective on the challenges we're facing. The biggest challenge is we don't have the support of our legislators in Washington.
Thank you, Ralph. That is a very important point because legislatively, we do not. We need to get this federally deschedulized.
Yes.
It's holding our whole country back, and the world market is actually thriving. I see it right now between countries that are doing business with each other, and we don't even talk about the United States any longer because we're choking our own system with our laws right now. So it's unfortunate. So what do you think the biggest issues in the industry are when it comes to diversity? Why isn't diversity so much more within the cannabis industry? It's such a small percent of minorities that are here, that are CEOs, that are making the headways, the changes to be able to have much more diversity and equity as well. Jane, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm so sorry, Keiko. I think I heard most of that about that second question.
Sure. I'm just saying, what are some of the biggest issues in the industry when it comes to diversity? Why do you feel that the minorities are such a small percentage of the cannabis industry right now? What can we do to bring that more to fruition?
Gosh, I think for me, there's a couple of different tiers that add to that diversity component, right? For me, in addition to getting the proper support from our legislation in order for us to really scale up the way that we should and the way that the rest of the world is, I think that there is quite a bit of stigmatism still out there about cannabis within the United States. A little bit. It's California's the fifth largest economy in the world. We've got a lot of already existing commercial activity that we could have learned from. And I think that the state really shot themselves in the foot with the way that the regulations were set up without having real feedback from the industry that had been operating for decades. I believe that they did talk to a few operators, but I think anybody been trying to navigate through these regulations for the past 3 years can agree that they didn't do a good enough job of doing their due diligence and framing out these regulations. The other that is that I think for many professionals that come from a more traditional background that would be interested in coming into the cannabis industry, they still are very much afraid to make that jump. For myself, I came from a very traditional background. I in a very strict Roman Catholic household. So the impression of Nancy Reagan and DARE and cannabis being the gateway drug is definitely something that was ingrained in many people when growing up in the United States. And I think that is still a narrative that we have to combat. I think that normalizing consumption is a key component in order to get to the next level. In my opinion, there are a lot of consumers. I know a lot of people, a lot of professionals that are CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies, that are lawyers, that are sometimes even judges, that are doctors, that lots of high-level people that definitely offset the Cheech and Chong narrative of cannabis consumption. Cannabis should be fun. It is fun. It's great. It's social. It's a very amazing plant. But at the same time, I think that there is still quite the narrative that it is a negative thing and that you can't be a productive individual and be a consumer as well. So I think normalizing consumption is a key component in attracting a more diverse group, whether it's by gender or by race or socioeconomic status, education, or professional experience. Really allowing people to accept that cannabis consumption on an adult use basis is no different than purchasing cigarettes or purchasing alcohol. I am a mother. I have an 8-year-old. I can't get into my child-resistant packaging for myself. I've got to stab it and rip it apart. But I mean, he can crack open a beer for his father if he wants to, you know. So there really is a big stigmatism around cannabis still that is absolutely unnecessary. It is about education. It's about normalizing consumption, and I think that's one of the really key components. Another piece that I think prevents us from having a little bit more diversity within the cannabis industry, whether it's by startup business or even just as employment, is a lack of resources. So when there are small businesses that are trying to make the transition from the traditional market into the regulated space, I think of Humboldt growers that have been doing this that might be up in the mountains and don't even have the internet, you know, let alone having to figure out how to use metric and then work around metric to work around regulations to work around commercial viability. So to me, there's a big resource gap there. And I think that is where federal and state grants need to step in. That's where the SBA needs to step in. There's a lot of resources that just are not available to the cannabis industry that are available to everyone else. And there's zero reason for it. When it comes to job postings, lots of recruiters for everything. I think there's a lot of recruiters that are starting to pop up, seeing the need within the cannabis industry. But up until I would say maybe a year or so ago, there were very few cannabis recruitment companies that were even out there to let people know that there were these opportunities. So I think that all of the factors exacerbate our inability to be diverse in this space.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane. Ralph and Darius, do you have anything you can add to that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ralph. No, go.
I think that I agree with everything Jane said. I think that there are some deep-rooted, again, social factors that play into people's ability to access programs, access capital more than anything. I'll tell you from my experience, my biggest challenge as an entrepreneur in the cannabis industry has been access to capital and being able to appeal to an investor in comparison to someone with a college degree or an Ivy League education. You know what I mean? I grew up in the hood, you know, and I developed a business for myself that transitioned from the black market. How do you put that on a resume? And that's the situation for a lot of people of color and people that are of other races. You know, you can't translate your experience into a traditional conservative platform, you know what I mean? And so it limits your ability to raise capital. Now, it doesn't mean to say that that people from every race have been involved at that level and haven't succeeded. There has been a lot of success out there, but I do think that there are some limiting factors to where we're coming from as an industry and where we're going. I think that we're going to see a lot more. I mean, this event, this conversation is a good sign of what's happening in the industry. There's people that are curious, that want to enter, and that want to participate, and are starting to open up to listen to other people's perspective on the topic. So I think that it's just a natural progression of participation. There are barriers, and I think that some more support from these different programs that support other industries becoming available for this industry are going to help that. So I mean, yeah, like I said, the biggest barrier to entry, I think, for an entrepreneur is one, understanding realistically if their product is a winner and if it can make it to the mass market, and two, being able to access capital with a limited background, business background. So, but people have done it. It's being an entrepreneur and breaking into industry requires a lot of persistence, and there are some qualities that just some people have and some people don't, and it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with how bad do you want it, and are you going to look in every corner until you find the way to make something happen? And that's that's my opinion.
I love this conversation because it is actually multi-tiered, right? And I think everyone is speaking their different parts of everyone has different pieces of the puzzle and pie. And I love these kinds of conversations because they help us all figure out what the big picture is and how do we get to a solution here. And it's going to take a long time to get there. But I think, from my standpoint, I think there should be a lot of there is enough diversity out there, right? There's not a question of is there enough diversity, what we're saying, or at least let me be very specific here. What I am saying is that the industry is very tiered to access to capital. The people with the most access to capital in our system are white men. If you got any industry, you want to build a house, who has the most capital to do that? You want to start your own popsicle stand, who has the most capital to do that? You pick pick any industry in the world, and you're probably talking about that, right? But there is a really interesting difference that cannabis has that I think that other industries don't, which is that the culture is centered around these diverse and underrepresented communities, these BIPOC communities, Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. And at the end of the day, cannabis's culture is built around it, right? When we think about, if I use Jane's example here for a minute here, no one thinks about the Canamom when they think about cannabis. They think about Cheech and Chong. Say what you will about either one, both are somewhat true representations of the community. But at the end of the day, cannabis is kind of more a cultural, because it is plant. People can grow it in their own house. Most people don't grow tobacco in their own house, right? Like, even if you do smoke cigarettes, you probably don't grow tobacco. Most people don't, brew their own beer. I'll give you that one. But most people don't distill their own liquors per se. You know what I mean? So cannabis is one of these things that that has always had its own cultural kind of concepts around it. And so what we need to do as a community is try to let the people in who have contributed so much to the culture, because they're the ones that are actually going to make you money. Let's just talk brass tacks here, because at the end of the day, this is about money in and money out. You want more money coming in than you have going out. At the end of the day, that's what the business is, right? And so, I can say through my experience at Ease and through the numbers and just the amount of research I've seen, that names don't sell cannabis, right? If you're going to use traditional marketing tactics to sell cannabis, you're going to fall flat on your face. Oh, wait a minute. Look, we have a graveyard full of cannabis companies who've tried to do that already, right? At the end of the day, what's going to happen is, there's a reason why Cookies is one of the first number one brands people come to in their mind, because they made a cultural icon and then turned it into a cannabis brand, not the inverse, right? That's how cannabis works. It's not, you don't take a cultural icon, major name celebrity, and then turn them into cultural cannabis celebrities. It's the inverse around. You know, cannabis culture and community, when you look at who they want to bring in for events, it's people who have a long history of artistry and cannabis, not someone who's like, hey, I see there's a lot of people making money over there in cannabis. Let me run over there and get something. That's not how the system works. So there's diverse people out there. There are Black and brown folks out there who are doing this work already. You just got to let them in. And if you let them in, I can guarantee you they're going to make you money.
Yep.
Thank you for that thought. And, you know, I mean, we are all minorities. We're here in this space. And I think that if we're out here and we're trying to normalize it, we're definitely wanting to be able to invite people in so everyone could be a part of this amazing community highlighting the plant. So, you know, what can we do to be able to so have solutions in solving the diversity problem and getting more people involved who would like to be here with us?
Well,
Jane,
go ahead.
Or Ralph.
Go ahead.
Please, Jane, go ahead.
So the chivalry is alive.
Yes.
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit on each of these questions a little bit. It is having the conversation. It is being open and honest and transparent about things. I hate to use this analogy, but it is reaching across the aisle to people that don't really feel the same way. I think there is within the corporate world where the capital is available. They need to have and truly embrace the idea of the cannabis culture and view it and respect it in an appropriate way. And in the exact same token, I think that there are some traditional cannabis operators that need to be open and welcoming to the idea of what has worked historically to scale up. There's just certain commercial practices that you just know across many industries that work. And only if we work together to really marry the best of both sides, are we going to really be able to succeed. In order for us to actually get the attention of our legislation, in order for us to get the change that we need, in order to get capital, in order to be able to get loans, in order for someone to come in and without having to do a lot of moving around of the cups to get a bank account, to be able to use PayPal, to merchant services, all of these things, in order for us to actually progress to that level and operate in a way that every other business does, we have to work together in order to make that change. We can no longer be combative, but it takes both sides to be welcoming, to learn from one another, to be successful together.
Right. And
thank you, Jane.
I think that there are a lot of underserved or unserved niches of the market that need to be tended to. You know, there's a whole aspect of cannabis user, or a whole multiple sectors of cannabis users that are not being served, and so I think it's also about us, in the industry, detecting those trends and being able to maybe help incubate brands and people that have good ideas. Like, in other words, if you make a ton of money in the industry, you should be, and you're a minority, you should probably be helping fund and helping others start companies that also support, the industry and these niches that are underserved. I'll give you some examples. There's, the 50 plus sector that is constantly underserved in dispensaries, for example, or under, represented. You've got niche markets in the Latino market that are not being served. That, for example, we started a brand that caters towards a consumer in the Latino market that doesn't want to be associated with like that narco aspect, or the gangster aspect. There's a lot of little niche markets, and I think a lot of people have good ideas about brands and products that they want to bring to market, but they don't have a place to go to that will help them incubate their idea, help them learn about the challenges that we've had as operators. And scalability, you mentioned it, Jane, is probably the biggest challenge for somebody. You can get big and you can get your name on you can get your spotlight moment, But then if you can't scale, you're going to be in that graveyard that Darius just mentioned. You won't make it because you don't have the tools in place and the support, the backbone to be able to, you know, thrive in the industry. So there is an educational aspect to this that is not just educating the consumer, but it's educating entrepreneurs and people that are trying to break into the industry and helping them understand what it's going to take to succeed. And it's, you know, if you could do a school of cannabis entrepreneurialism, I say let's do it. You know, it's I think it's necessary. You know.
You know, we should. I gotta brag a little bit. Ease has something like that. Our Momentum program is a 12-week program that does help accelerate brands from that are already on the ground working to that, and then we also give them $50,000 grants in order to help them build their entire, help build their company. It's not perfect, as we all know in this industry. $50,000 can come in and out like that. Just like buying a delivery truck. $50K right there, paying your insurance, $50K right there, it's gone, right? Paying one staffer, $50K gone, right? This stuff can just like disappear really quickly, but it does help and it does do something. And so the industry needs to try to, once again, this is going to take a public and private partnership, because it took public and private partnership to get us into this mess. There's going to be a public and private partnership to get us out of this mess.
I agree.
Thank you so much. I mean, we're definitely looking at the education, the outreach, as well as having community support, and with company like Ease developing programs like this. So thank you so much. We're going to normalize this. But right now, I would like to introduce to you our other co-host, Jay Brower, and he's going to be able to lead you into some more questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keiko.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keiko.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Yes, Keiko, you did an awesome job getting us here so far. Definitely appreciate it, and all the panelists, you guys are doing phenomenal. Darius, I know I'm familiar with the Ease grant. Know some folks that have went for it. You guys are doing amazing work there. Ralph, I mean, just even getting people to think bigger, and this can go across borders. Jane, all the work you guys are doing, helping folks get started, transfer that to some folks that need a hand up. That'd be a blessing as well. So let's jump right in respect to time, to the next question here. All right. So what opportunities exist currently for minorities to start and run a business? And by that, I mean, if I'm an individual, Black, brown, a woman, whatever it may be, and you're out there, you're like, you know what? I want to get in this industry. What are some opportunities that exist currently?
For me, I think that there are some, but very limited resources out there. I know that certain municipalities have equity programs that allow, like I know Oakland's got something that seems to be working pretty well, where social equity individuals can apply and they share facilities so that they don't have to have the same kind of overhead and paying rent for a place that is empty part of the time while you're trying to do some production stuff. So I know that there are some municipalities that are doing it better or worse, or at least being somewhat available for social equity programs. I think we need to do a better job of that within the state. I think the state needs to do a better job of working hand in hand with the municipalities to make this thing work. I think one of the other things that would help in giving more opportunities, again, is having that federal legalization. Because once we acknowledge across the board within our nation that we support this plant, support those that support the sale, distribution, testing, creativity behind products within that plant, is really going to make the difference. I think we've got it started, but I think that the state and municipalities need to do a better job of making those programs easier to work with and more readily available to individuals that don't know. I mean, even for myself, as we're talking about programs like Momentum, I didn't know that Ease had Momentum. I think that's amazing. And I think it's an amazing opportunity and a great community investment that they've got going for education and capital. I think that those that are successful in this space should be reinvesting in the space in that capacity. And I really commend Ease for doing that for the community. Outside of that, I think that Darius kind of hit on it a little bit too. There are a lot of barriers for minorities and marginalized communities, including those that are disabled. We're talking about diversity, and generally we talk about gender and we talk about race, but we don't usually talk about disabled individuals as well. So I think that it really is extending that hand and acknowledging where we need to have some social equity so that then we can have equality. I think there is often a confusion in everybody deserves the same amount and rationing in order to get out equality. But what we really need to be talking about is investing and giving equity so that we can all actually stand equally.
Yeah, great answer. Ownership is definitely key. Go ahead, Darius.
Yeah, there are a number of brands out there that have, let me take one quick step back. First, we have to ask the question, what are we doing? What am I as a company doing? What are we as a company doing? What is the board doing? What am I as the mayor or city council person doing? Because when I think about how we got to this point at Ease of creating our own social equity menu and our own social equity program, it all started when I was walking with my SVP at the time. We were walking down the street, and I just asked one question. I said, "Why doesn't Ease have Black-owned and social equity-owned brands on the menu?" And his honest response was, "I thought we did, right?" And that response turned into, "Well, let's look into this, right?" And then the question became, well, if we're saying this is important, but yet we're not doing anything about it, then how important is it, right? I study politics a lot, and we often say in political circles, or at least when you're studying politics, I don't know, political circles, who am I, like this or something? You say your budget exemplifies your values, right? At the end of the day, where you spend your money, and that goes for every human being on this planet. If I spend 50% of my budget on video games and then I swore up and down I hate video games, you'd be like, really? Really? Your budget doesn't show that, right? And the same thing kind of sort of goes for our country. We talk about how we're peace loving, but yet the biggest thing in our budget is the military, right? Like, come on now. So when we look at when we look at companies and we look at the industry as a whole, everyone needs to put some skin in the game, and everybody needs to there are companies out there that are building up and creating their own thing. And then there are companies out there who already have a lot of stuff. And so those ones out there who have a lot of stuff need to be saying, hey, how can I mutually benefit? No one's asking you to give charity. You say, how can I mutually benefit? If you want to give charity too. Set up a fund, give out some grants, throw some dollars folks' way. Ain't nobody gonna turn that down. But what you need to do is set up an actual process that allows for you to build partnerships that are mutually beneficial. So, real prime example is that I have to say Ease has had a 180 degree turn in terms of our perception within Black, Brown, BIPOC communities over the past 2 years, primarily because we said, all right, people may not think the best things about us. How do we fix that thing? Well, let's do the thing that people are asking us to do. Give a crap, care, do the good work, do the work that needs to get done. So over the past 2 years, we put our heads down and said, all right, I guess it's time to do the work, right? No one else is going to do the long division except for us. So we did the long division and we showed our work. And by showing our work, what we subsequently did was receive good vibes and feelings back out there. It is a simple thing to say you put good out and good comes back to you, but it actually is the case. And so what has that also done? By doing the hard work, that meant that we went out, found social equity brands, partner with them. work tirelessly to figure out, all right, what are their issues? Oh, they're not getting paid in time. All right, we got to get them paid on time. What are their issues? Distribution is part of their issues. All right, how do we help and support with that? What are their issues? Oh, well, they don't have capital. They need invoice financing. Okay, let us figure out how to do that. Let's build programs around these folks so that we can help them build their own companies. And subsequently, what have we been able to do? Well, interestingly enough, I'm really happy to announce that in only 2 years, we've had our social equity, not even 2 years, our social equity menu has been up for about a year and 4 months, a year and 6 months, and we've sold $4.2 million in social equity cannabis alone, right? So that is direct sales from Black, brown, and social equity owned companies. So we bought it from them and then we sold it to the consumer. And at the end of the day, that makes us, and we are seeing the sales. I'm like, oh, people really love this specific social, people really want to buy from good companies, social equity and diverse companies. So let's create that space. That's mutually beneficial. We want people to come to our platform to buy our products. Oh, wait, hey, we have a cadre of amazing partners who have amazing products that people want, but they can't find in their local dispensaries or other places because the industry sometimes likes to turn into a little bit of an Ouroboros, where it eats its own tail. It's a snake eating its own tail, if you will, right? Like people think you can make money and spend it internally and create your own brands and do all this thing. But in actuality, sometimes you have to go out and find brands and folks who are doing things that are far beyond what you have done, what your company or your group has done, and then give them the opportunity to expand. And it becomes mutually beneficial.
Yep, it's about symbiotic relationships for sure. Symbiotic relationships.
Very, very true. Sometimes people have the scarcity mindset in this industry, and instead of realizing it could be a win-win and giving people a hand up. If you want something, you got to help somebody else get what they want. So Ralph, anything you want to chime on that before we get to the last couple questions?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think what Ease is doing is amazing. I think I didn't even realize that you guys were doing so much on this topic. It's amazing. I think that the more, if you're part of the minority-owned cannabis community or minority-owned businesses within the cannabis community, I think that it's important that the Ease model is followed by members of the industry, and that we look for those companies that are socially responsible and that want to create this sort of an environment in California. Let's say for now that we're on this discussion here in California, but moving forward as an industry on a nationwide level, once we achieve federal legalization, there should be a standard that not Latino, but minority-owned companies use to define who they're going to work with, and basically start to strengthen the minority aspect of the business by supporting each other. And yes, I mean, again, my hat's off to Darius and the team at Ease. I think what you're doing is amazing. Honestly, what Jane said, there aren't a lot of resources. There aren't a lot of opportunities out there. We have to create them. It's as responsible business owners and operators.
Yeah, and Ralph, that's actually really quickly though, that's actually exactly the kind of ethos and the premise I use for when we created our programs all together. So I am constantly bringing our social equity partners together and saying, oh, you're working on this and you're working on this. Why aren't you working on this together? Yeah. So you have a distribution and you have you have production for this other thing, and you are trying to make a thing. Why don't you make a collaboration? And then I help facilitate getting those things on our marketplace and our platform because they are stronger when they do work together. Because unfortunately, our social equity partners don't have the money of a Kaliva, say, for instance, to just, kind of make your own products and build out your own kind of ecosystem per se. But together, and there are groups like the Original Equity Group in San Francisco and other social equity groups throughout California that have done really amazing work on that.
No, thank you for sharing it. And a testament to that is I also run a nonprofit down in San Diego, and Ease has worked closely with us and helped out. And one thing I like that Ease does is a lot of education and getting information out there. And that's what this platform is here. That's what's so great about the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce is very informative and giving out information. So in respect to time, we're going to get to the last question, which is a great segue to what you were just mentioning, Darius, about social equity. So what do you all feel has went right with social equity that we can build on, and what has went wrong with the social equity programs that we should take away? Anybody jump in first?
It's such a loaded question. There's so many things where you can start from.
I know.
I guess I need to at least nod to the fact that there are social equity programs out there at all, right? It could have been worse, right? There could have been nothing available. They could have just not acknowledged it altogether. So at least there are some programs. Kind of like what we had talked about previously, there needs to be a reinvestment in those that are succeeding to help those along that need help. Again, I adamantly believe that a lot of this goes back to capital and just the fundamental spirit of small business lending, and really putting some of those federally guaranteed monies or even state guaranteed monies into the hands of small business owners so that they can even have the opportunity to have the money, to have a line of credit to support their AR cycles, so they can have the money to buy their initial inventory, so they can buy that $50,000 distribution vehicle plus a cage plus a safe that's bolted into it. It's being able to give them those resources. So while we did do a good job of at least creating some programs, it fell short of actually being available to everyone and that funding being available. In my opinion, there needs to be, I think, a less complex tax structure in particularly California, so that the money that is created within California through tax collection can then be put back into federal grants for operators, for relief, like the PPE loans that not many of us were able to get through COVID. It really is expanding the intention of helping social equity programs and really committing to them. So I think we've done an okay job of that first step. It's really making everything actionable and making it readily available for everybody.
I really like, Jane, you mentioned the finance part of it. That's a huge barrier, is the finance part. Ralph, would you like to jump in there?
I mean, I think that unfortunately, I have a strong opinion about this. I feel like a lot of equity programs are failing the people that they're designed to place in the industry. I don't feel that they are well designed. I feel like the wrong people are designing them. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's just they're not doing what they claim to want to do, or they're supposed to do in a lot of places. Now, that doesn't mean all of them. I mean, there are some markets, Oakland. I mean, there's some markets where it's working at some level. But again, I'm probably not the best person to speak on this topic specifically. I know it's very relevant to what we're saying, but I've steered my group and my team away from the social equity programs because I feel that they limit us to a certain extent in some markets. And we've worked so hard to bootstrap our business and get to where we are on our own, that at this point, we're not going to go through all that red tape to just get, some meager help from these programs. I mean, it's almost easier for us to go in the direction of just, hitting the pavement and talking to people until we achieve our purpose, which is really raising capital. The main issue is raising capital. Now, education is super important, and that's something that needs to be addressed as well. I think in these programs is helping people incubate their businesses and get them, further quicker. But again, I don't have a lot of good to say about social equity programs from my standpoint. I'm sorry.
No, Ralph, you did phenomenal there, Ralph, because what you pretty much said is that there is a lot of red tape, right? The systems and whichever politics are at play within that city get in the way, and that a lot of programs aren't working, right? And so it can be better. But like what Jane said, at least they're there in place now so that they can be done better. But yeah, that's great. Darius, you want to bring us home before we bring Keiko back on?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Right, Ralph has some really good points there. Jane, everyone has really good points. The core of the social equity program is that there are a couple of problems, and I work with our government relations team a lot, and I have a background in policy and politics. And so I've run electoral campaigns. I've run issue-based campaigns. And what I'm going to go down as quickly as I can my list of issues with social equity programs and how they need to get fixed real quick, which is one of the people who are creating these programs have no experience in cannabis whatsoever. Some of them, because of how government laws work and rules work, never have smoked weed because they would never be in a government job if they had, or they haven't smoked it in 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. It's been forever. So they have no idea how the actual industry works. And then two, what that does is creates technical gaps in their knowledge of what should taxation be? What should the rate of this be? I remember a conversation with, New York people, I'll just leave it at that, in elected offices, who were talking about the New York bill, and they were like, "Oh my God, 100 milligrams in a pack of edibles? That seems ridiculous. We should limit it to 2 milligrams." And I was like, "That's not how this works." Like, that is literally not how this works. They think big numbers means more intoxication, and it's like, that's not exactly how this works. So explaining what a vape is, what is a cartridge, what is a gummy, all of that stuff is, and then that's one core issue. And then one of the second core issues is that the government system has not figured out how to move from incubation to acceleration. They are still stuck in a mindset of how do we get people the information, especially in a state like California that's pretty mature, that those days are long gone. We should be in a mode of, all right, we did the groundwork, let's accelerate you. And that's why I'm hoping that states like Michigan and New Jersey and others, start figuring it out quicker. And so I think as we look at other states that start to legalize, I think if they are anywhere near the realm of somewhat intelligent, they will really dig in deep to what, I've had people say, "Oh, well, don't compare us to California. We don't care what you did in California." And I'm like, okay, you go right around and create your own little headaches, and I'm just going to sit in the back and laugh at you being like, we already figured this out, right? And that becomes the issue at the core of the day, that people need to realize that other folks have had these problems. The answers are out there. They are pretty damn simple. Actually, you need to get people money in their pockets. You need to pay for them a lawyer, pay for them an accountant, give them a grant. Don't give them $100,000 in services. Give them $100,000.
Yeah.
You hit it spot on. It's very simple. Get out the way, give the financing, educate the folks, give them a hand up. Spot on. We would like to thank the panelists for coming. You guys did a phenomenal job. This is so important to get the information out there. Really, thank you for your time. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here with us, getting this great information out there. So as we sign off and say thank you to you all, I want to bring Keiko back on so we can get to our next segment.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, I'm back.
All right, welcome back. Well, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, because without them, none of this would be possible. So we want to say thank you to Larry Horowitz Law Offices for their sponsorship. We would also like to thank Paving Great Futures for their sponsorship as well. This makes it possible for us to do what we do. So thank you.
And we do have a couple of sponsors that will be giving away raffle prizes, and we have Rove as well as Raw, and we'll be having our drawing for prizes at the end of our networking panel. And just, wasn't that just a wealth of experience and information? And I'm just so impressed what EASE has developed for the community and minorities.
And your audio is messing up just a little bit, but we believe we got the gist. We are going to get into the next segment here with the speed networking, and also is going to be some more great sponsored gifts that'll be given out. So that's awesome.
Great. And for those of you who've never done the speed networking, this is a wonderful opportunity to meet somebody. You'll be given about 4 minutes where you'll have be randomly picked to introduce to someone, and you'll have that time to get to know each other. And if you want to extend your time, you'll see up in the upper right hand corner where you can click to extend that time, as well as another button that you can further connect with them. So we really want to thank you for this opportunity to be with us today here at the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. And we will be starting our networking shortly. And I think what we'll go, you'll see the little button on your left-hand side where it says networking, and that'll get you started on that process. So once that's over, then we'll come back and we'll have our raffle for giveaways. So thank you so much. We can go over to our networking program now.